AIDS, cancer, glaucoma, multiple sclerosis. My friend Dennis Perone and I will be leaving for Washington, D.C. tomorrow to do an event at the White House because I'm preaching to the choir here basically in Los Angeles, and we have a president that finally listened to me when I went to the Democratic Convention last year and helped elect him. This is about seriously ill Californians. I sat on the committee that drafted SB 420. You cannot blame me for people that operate these clubs and that drive Maseratis and won't give a joint to AIDS patients. But you can certainly thank me for saving hundreds of thousands of lives with HIV and AIDS and cancer and the numerous illnesses. I am here today to suggest that you obey the will of the voters of the state of California and make sure that we do not close down all these dispensaries. Perhaps we need to weed out a few of them, but we have a city of 11 million people, and we're going to need a couple of hundred dispensaries.
Okay.
And when I go to Washington, D.C., I hope that I don't have to ask the Obama administration or State Attorney General Jerry Brown to step in and help. All right?
None of this conversation is about legitimate marijuana uses as being denied. It is about 1,000 facilities that are lined up. Look at the LA Weekly, advertising to raves, to nightclubs, to students. None of them are near healthcare facilities. None of them are near AIDS clinics. This is through the Downtown LA Neighborhood Council. We spend significantly more time looking at a beer and wine license or a liquor license, and we have zero control over these popping up in the neighborhood with not even the permission of the landlord knowing what's going on. And this is millions of dollars of mafia money and drug money and profit money coming in the name of compassionate use. We've had a couple of murders. We've had people jump off fire exits for not paying the drug dealers. We have people that are in recovery in Skid Row that these are being plopped right down. You don't need 17 clinics on Melrose and Pico to convince you this is not about compassionate use for ill folks.
6 samples of medical marijuana purchased at random at dispensaries. Took them down to a state-of-the-art lab in Orange County for testing. Of those 6 samples, 2 of them came back with unacceptable levels of insecticide. 2 of the 6, that's 1/3. 1 came back with either 5 or 6 times the ingestible recommended maximum amount of bifenthrin. The other sample came back with 1,600 times the recommended amount of bifenthrin. What is bifenthrin? Bifenthrin is an insecticide that's used to kill and eradicate fire ants. Can I have a show of hands of those of you who have had a fire ant infestation at your home? Fire ant? Here's the word. Fire ants are not indigenous to California. So it really surprises me that you had fire ants because they're not indigenous to California. Ladies and gentlemen, you can see where I'm going. Of all of the substances that we ingest, at the moment, medical marijuana is the only one that our FDA and other regulatory bodies who are responsible for packaging, weighing, labeling, and ensuring the integrity of the product, it's the only product that we do not take a look at. And yet we hand it out to seriously ill people as if it will benefit them, and I surely hope it will. But I, for one, do not want to ingest insecticides, pesticides, or other substances when I think what I'm doing is improving my health.
I also want to let everyone know that nobody on this panel today supports the abuse of the medical cannabis laws. In fact, we worked very hard for those to be adopted, and we don't want to see an unchecked proliferation or an unregulated market for medical cannabis. In fact, we support very tough regulations in this regard. And so there's not to my knowledge, a faction that's arguing for no regulation or for 10 or 20 in a block or what have you. Those are the sorts of things that the regulation should be addressing, is how close to each other they should be, how close from sensible uses, and we need to move forward with that debate, but we're stuck on this sort of old Finnish debate about can they buy medicine in there, and the fact is other cities and counties move past that, and so we should be moving on to the substantive debate now about how it's going to work in our community.
What exactly about marijuana do you know, besides there are 1,000 dispensaries and 10,000 cops. What about marijuana? And besides pesticides, because you seem to be very well versed. You killed the horse, in the beginning. But you didn't really talk anything about medical marijuana at all. So I'm really, really curious. What do you know about it? Please don't shake your head. Just answer.
You know what? I don't want to be provocative with you. I'd just
I
like
just
to
wanna
hear
know.
what your comments are.
My comments is that all three of you guys, besides speaking the obvious about how things are out of control and that there are 1,000, and yes, people use these places for drug dealing for the most part because they have an in and they have a way. You guys haven't really talked about what to do about it, or the fact that it's really the doctors that are problem. And the FDA that you love so much. I was on morphine, I was on Duragesic, I was on fentanyl. I almost died because of fecal poisoning back in New Jersey, where if I mentioned marijuana, I would have gotten in trouble. So this FDA that you love so much is completely screwed up. And you love them. I don't know why. You're perfectly healthy. You're sitting there. You're happy. You're laughing in pretty much every comment that comes out of this room. But you don't realize that I have tried more medications than you can even understand. You can shout out numbers and you can repeat yourself, but you have never experienced being ill. You've never experienced the benefit of marijuana. And yeah, pesticides, some of them are bad. That's why you go to a good place. That's why if there was an actual system that was set up for actual health reasons, to actually find out how medical marijuana can help people in the best positive way, to not just get them stoned, that would actually lead to somewhere where we can actually control this. And maybe even measure it out and have it be dosed or something. But I hear nothing coming from their side at all.
So I struggle with a lot of things and have to take medication, and as you get older, that's what happens to you. I don't think anyone on this panel wants to take medical marijuana away from you, so I think it's kind of a little unfair to say that we are. I follow, and I'm telling you, I went to the normal site, Normal, which wants to, is very involved in it, to see what they had to say. And even on that site, they list smoking marijuana as for AIDS patients, as for AIDS and maybe cancer, but all of the other ailments on their site, they talk about extracts of the whole cannabis plant as being promising, but not smoking it.
This thing started at 8 o'clock this morning, and the mere fact that people came for an 8 o'clock event from all over the city on a Saturday morning to talk about these very important issues and to take a vote on it and to develop action on it is really a wonderful thing. I'm not in the habit really of seeing people behave that well so quickly, and I think it's going to be great. I think it's definitely going to work.
I think the neighborhood councils have now reached what I hope will be a critical mass, that they are now about 8 or 10 years old and have begun to get a feel for what they need to do within the context of their communities and within the context of the city at large. And the more that the neighborhood councils can come together and act as a larger group, the more power that they'll have in the city, and the more that they'll be able to influence the decisions of the city council, hopefully.